Okay, everybody, good morning. Um, I've got you all muted just to keep everything um, kind of halfway sane, if you will, so we don't hear everybody's background noise. But if you have anything that you want to contribute, please feel free to raise your hand using the raise hand icon, and I'll call on you and we'll move from there. Just to remind everybody, today's lecture is being recorded, and that recording will be made available to you all some point later this afternoon through my YouTube channel, and I'll put the link in there in the module for today. So I want to do a couple of things before we get started on today's lecture material. There was a little bit of confusion last week on some of the assignments, so I just want to go through some of that again. So each week you're going to have an assignment for attendance, and you're going to have some notebook reflections. Okay, so your attendance assignments are going to be open to you 5 minutes before class starts. So if you look in your assignment, if you were to look in your assignments right now, you would see the assignment for today's attendance. That's going to be due by 5:15 this evening. Okay, so it's very important that you work your attendance assignments as quickly as you can during the day. And I'm having to admit a lot of people into the lobby, from the lobby. Okay, so good morning, everybody, for those of you who just joined. So we were just talking about the assignments that are due every week, and we just finished talking about the attendance assignment. Don't forget that those are going to be due by 5:15 p.m. each day of class. So you'll have one of those due today. And then you also got a notebook reflection that's due each week. And those notebook reflections will be due by 11:59 p.m. the day after class. So you have until nearly midnight, not midnight, but you have till nearly midnight tomorrow to finish those notebook reflections. And so I went through and also mentioned your notebook reflections need to be about a third of a page in length if you were a typewritten page. Okay, so these aren't meant to be simple little statements, okay, of one or two sentences, unless I tell you that's what it should be. In general, though, your notebook reflections need to be about a third of a page. Also, I want to remind everybody that one of the assignments that we have coming up is our first one-on-one meeting, which is due by September 18th. That means by September 18th, everybody has to have gone through a one-on-one meeting with me. I've already scheduled one of the one-on-one meetings, but I need each of you to reach out to me and schedule those one-on-one meetings sooner rather than later so that we can make sure we've got everybody in before that. What are we going to do during that first one-on-one meeting? I'm going to spend a little time getting to know who you are. It's pretty simple and straightforward. I'll admit right now, I miss seeing each and every one of you in a class. I see you, many of you on a screen right now, but that's just not very satisfying. I don't really get to talk one-on-one with you like I normally would in class as we're doing things. And so I want to have some one-on-one meetings throughout the semester. I'm going to get to know you, why it is that you want to be a chemistry major, what your life goals are, and answer any questions that you may have about being a chemistry major. So that's gonna be it. Now, what I need you all to do is I need you all to email me days and times that you would prefer to meet with me. Okay. Now, I will go into the evenings with these one-on-one meetings if that works best for you. I don't care. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be 8 to 5. It can even be on the weekend if that works best for you. I'm going to be open that. I won't go too late in the evening. I got to have a little bit of time. But please send me some days and times that would work for you, and I will pick one that fits my schedule. Okay? So it's better than going back and forth. So send me, let's say, 3 or 4 options that of a date and a time that would work for you. I'll find one that fits my schedule, and then I will send you a Teams invite to that one-on-one meeting. So let's go ahead and start getting those in this week so we can get those scheduled. Are there any questions about any of that before we move into today's materials? Okay, I'm seeing no hands, so I'm going to move on. So a couple of things that I want to talk about today. You had a couple of reading assignments. One was learning to learn and one was career ladder. And I want to start with career ladder. And so we'll just pull it up here right now. This actually comes out of the American Chemical Society's weekly newsletter. I mean, it's really it's a magazine. It's not a technical document really at all. It's all about what's going on in chemistry and engineering. It's called Chemical and Engineering News. And they always have things in there that I think are important for new chemistry majors to know something about. And so I saw this one on Career Ladder and thought I would share it with you all. You all are thinking about careers now, or at least you should be. College is usually step 2 or 3 towards your career. And so I'm going to, throughout the semester, give you some pieces from Chemical and Engineering News or other American Chemical Society resources about careers, because many of you right now are, have a desire one way or the other. Maybe some of you are going to go to medical school, dental school. But I want you to know that there are other career opportunities out there for somebody with a degree in chemistry or biochemistry. You don't have to be somebody that wears a lab coat all day. You don't have to go to medical school. You don't have to go to dental school. Those are fine options, but there are other things that you can do in terms of a career. And what I found kind of interesting about Joyce Nethery is she had a very windy career path, right? Started off in chemical engineering for her degree, actually transferred colleges, as some of you may do at some point. Then went into a career, working on electronics kind of things, and then ultimately ended up in the classroom, and then finally decided to settle home and start a business as a distillery. So again, using those skill sets that she had developed as a chemical engineer and those skills that she acquired during her various careers, ultimately she mentions how that comes together in her current career, if you will, of running a distillery. So I thought this was kind of a nice winding path. It was kind of an interesting career trajectory, if you will. So I'm going to stop there real quick. Does anybody have any thoughts or anything that they would like to share about that reading? Don't be shy. Anything surprise anybody? Oh,
I wonder if
we saw one person. Somebody raised their hand.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I was just saying that it takes a lot of discipline to be a high school teacher, and in some schools a lot more than others. So I have a lot of respect for her choosing to go into teaching.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't her first choice, right? How many of you all know that we actually do offer in the chemistry program a licensure option, to where if you're thinking about going down the path of being a teacher, you can get your degree in chemistry with a licensure emphasis that would license you to teach in Mississippi.
I met
Quick show of
someone with
hands.
that major.
Pardon?
I've met someone with that major, the
Okay.
emphasis.
Good. Is that Mac?
I don't intend to do it, but I'm aware it's an option.
Okay. Well, good. So I'm seeing a lot of hands of people that are aware that that's an option. And I want you to keep it in mind, because I've seen a lot of people as they've progressed in the major, things have changed in terms of their career desires. and they end up going on and teaching at high school level. So many of you right now who are thinking, no, I don't want to go teach high school. I just finished that. I don't want to go back. You may end up changing your mind. I've got a student right now who's doing research in my lab who had every intention to go to medical school, and his career decision changed, and he decided to become a teacher. And so he's doing research in my lab right now on chemical education kind of stuff. And he's going to do what's called the alternate route to it. So he's not doing the licensure, but there are other ways in which you can become high school teachers. So I don't want you to put it out of your mind. If you really like interacting with people and you have a desire to give back to your community, teaching is a great opportunity for you to do those types of things. So you will find it quite common that people in their career paths at some point will consider teaching as an option. So there's a lot of people that go off and work in industry, as she did for several years, that decide then for whatever reason to go and teach high school for a while. And quite frequently it's a desire to give back to the community. Typically it's because they had a good high school experience with a teacher that led them down that path of, hey, I want to do what somebody did for me, and so they'll go down that path at least for a while. And so I know several people who I went to school with who went into industry and actually got fairly rich, and ultimately decided then to go back and teach at high school. Not filthy rich or anything, but they're well off, and decided then to go back into the classroom and give back. And so that's not an uncommon path for a number of people to take. So just keep it in mind as you're thinking about your career. It is something that is very fulfilling. I find, even though I don't teach high school, I find when I go to the high schools and give demonstrations and that type of thing, I find that a very rewarding part of my career and my day, usually when I go do those types of things. So always keep that kind of stuff in mind. So we're going to have several readings from the CNE News materials. You won't have to pay for any of that. You can actually access this stuff online through the USM website, I believe. But I'm going to just scan it in and give it to you, so you don't have to worry about accessing things to the library as much as we can. So just let me know if you have difficulties downloading the items, but I think it's reasonably good quality there. Any other questions or comments about that particular reading? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to learning to learn. And I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on asking you all what you took from that reading. So feel free to chime in. What did you all take away from learning to learn?
I found some new concepts to. Generally, I get all my work done in the mornings, and this gave me a few extra ideas to work into my couple-hour session in the morning.
Okay, Damien.
I took away that there was a lot of different aspects to learn that I never really thought of and never really could have conceived through all my years of schooling, because of the way that our mindset was taught to approach learning and studying and getting to an endpoint. And so I was going to use I started using some of those skills that was in learning to apply to what I'm doing today, and with learning chemistry and succeeding in other classes, and that's just helping me push forward and give me better strategies to do and what to do and how better to do it.
Okay. Columbia?
I kind of got from it that there's more to learning than just the subject itself that you're being taught. Because I know one of the things was learning should include academic honesty. And I think a lot right now in the school system, we see quite the opposite with cheating, because it's more goal oriented in terms of I need to get this certain grade, when learning should be about not just a subject, but like you as a person and, cultivating yourself to be, more honest and have better integrity, which I thought was very interesting.
Okay, no, that's a good point. I think, and Aiden, I'll get to you in just a second. So just hang tight. Part of the issue with cheating is that everything has become high stakes, and I think from an educator's point of view, I think we've made a mistake in that, and I think people need to understand that we should encourage people to make mistakes in education. I'd much rather a chemist or a chemical engineer make a mistake in the laboratory in a learning environment as opposed to a huge plant or whatever the case may be. This is where we learn. And so I think when everything becomes high stakes, it encourages cheating. To me, learning is about making those mistakes and then learning from it and trying to improve. So giving students opportunities to learn from their mistakes, I think, is key. And so we are certainly trying to encourage more and more faculty to have that kind of mindset about education, and it's a challenge for us. Aiden, you had your hand up.
Yes, sir. In less abstract terms, it made me think, I should probably start eating breakfast again.
You skip breakfast?
Usually.
Usually, yeah. I do too, to be honest with you. Just one second, Hannah. I think Madison had her hand up. Was that?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about how there was like a chart about the different levels of thinking and learning. I remember from like a class last year, they were talking about those levels and I kind of forgot about them until I saw that chart again. And it was just like reminding me that there's a difference between like knowing the definition and then learning how to evaluate it and apply it to a different part of like a problem.
That's very true. And we're going to talk about that when I get to my presentation here in just a moment on stop studying and start learning. And that's a very important point. We had one other. Hannah, I believe it was you, if I remember.
Yes. I liked the graph about different ways of like how you learn. I didn't realize there were so many. I've always just stuck to like the basic 3. And I realized that there was like a couple that I actually feel like fit my style of learning. And I thought that was really interesting.
Okay, great. Yeah, we all learn a little differently, but and I think it's very important for you all to determine the way that works best for you. And I don't know what will work best for you, but I do know ways that will not work for you. And I bet you can guess what they are. Cramming before the exam will not work for you as you move into college. I am fortunate to have grown up in a time where I straddled the 2 modes of teaching, really. When I was younger, you went to school to gain knowledge. You didn't have access to information on a phone. You didn't have access to an internet. And then as I transitioned into college, the internet became, widely available. And so I got to see that transition. I got to live through that transition from where people largely went to college to get knowledge, if you will. I mean, I know that rhymes and it's corny, but it's true. And the lecturer would stand up in front of a classroom of 400 people. I was literally in classes of 400 people. And they were telling you everything that they knew, expecting you to retain it, and then basically regurgitate it on an exam. Those days are long gone. You have access to all kinds of information, and really what we have to do now is get you up on some of those higher levels of understanding that information. Landon, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that another thing about how like learning styles that don't work is I feel like in high school a lot of the time, the classes that are meant to like prepare you for skills in college, like, you know, mostly English, where you're like learning to write essays and learning to speak in front of the class and everything,
Mhm.
they, because it's like difficult to learn the skill and to get the kids to learn the skill, a lot of teachers just skip out on it and only make you write 1 or 2 token essays. But whenever you actually get a teacher that challenges you and, you know, forces you, or like really like starts to crack down on like the skill of, you know, writing an effective essay, I feel like that's really important.
Okay. I thought I saw somebody else raise their hand real quick. Nope. Okay. So if I missed you, I apologize. It's hard to see when hands go up sometimes and when they come back down real quick. So yeah, there are many ways in which we learn. There are many ways in which we can be successful at that. All of them, in my judgment, are based on how we best interact with material and our experiences. I don't think you can learn very well if you don't tie your learning to some type of experience, especially in chemistry. You all will go into the classroom and you will hear your professor talk to you about facts. You will see them work example problems. If time permits, they may have you all work in groups to practice some of the problems. But I always found that I learned all of my chemistry in the laboratory. I took that stuff that I got in lecture, those tidbits, but I really learned it when I went into the laboratory and I actually got my hands on it. When I could use all of my psychomotor skills, I could smell the chemistry, I could touch the equipment. That's when I had the experiences that really tied the learning for me all together. And so I think it's very important that you understand that when you go into a laboratory setting, you really are there to take the skills that you, or the information that you learned in the lecture, and apply it and gain some skills. That's a very, very important piece of the sciences in general. That's why all of your science classes have some type of laboratory associated with them, because you really aren't going to understand it until you can apply it to the level that we want you to leave with it, right? You might know, where something sits on the periodic table, and you may theoretically know something about its reactivity, but you really don't understand its reactivity until you mix two things together and you see it, how vigorous it reacts, or something along those lines. And so those types of experiences will stick with you, and they will serve as anchor points by which you scaffold all of your knowledge. And it's when you can start to scaffold that knowledge that you really have a deep understanding of the material. So I'm going to switch gears here just a second. I got to get this other thing up on my screen and share it with you. So give me just 1 second. I'm going to get my slideshow going here. I need to share a different screen. So I'm going to stop sharing the current screen. And I realized this was something I didn't do very well last time, and I apologize on the recording. Okay, can you all see my Stop Studying and Start Learning PowerPoint? Okay, I'm seeing some heads bob up and down. Good. So this is a presentation that I put together a few years ago, and I have shared it numerous times. This came together to me after attending a meeting where actually a professor was talking about how she had developed a learning center at the institution she was at. And it really struck home to me because she was a chemistry professor that ended up going more on the education research side of things. And And so I really kind of started to think about studying versus learning. And I think you all have spent a lot of time studying throughout your high school career. You've spent a lot of time studying at the start of your college career. But I think where people miss a little bit is that they don't go on to that next step of learning. And so my point here is not to sound like, oh, well, you can just stop studying. But I think you do need to stop studying as you're currently doing it and think about how you can be in learning mode more often than in study mode. And so let me see if I can get my PowerPoint. There we go. So yeah, you should be having the question right now, hey, stop studying. I thought I was here in college, right, to study a lot. And what I mean by this is I want you to stop studying at least as you practice it now. Okay. And so what you're doing right now really is at the lower levels of the pyramid. And we want you to move up to the higher levels of the pyramid, if you will. So I know many of you have probably already looked at this particular slide, so you know some of the words that are probably coming. But think of some words that you think are synonymous with study, and think of some words that you think are synonymous with learning. Take just a moment and think about those. And then raise your hand if you have some words that aren't on the list. So let's go through a few. So with studying, what are some words that might come to mind? With learning, what are some words that might come to mind, right? Many of you think that studying and learning are actually the same thing, when in fact they're not, right? So some words that I came up with when I think of the word study, I think of reading, I think of reviewing, I think of doing research, not necessarily laboratory research, but research for like a paper. You might think of doing exercises or homework, and you might think of cramming or memorizing. I see students all of the time trying to memorize words and think and go, well, I'm studying for my exam. I'm memorizing things can be important. I'm not going to minimize it, but it's really not learning. You can regurgitate a lot of things pretty easily without learning them. The computer does it all the time, right? The computer has a vast memory. I can get the computer to regurgitate things to me that I've told it all in all, but I can't get it to do the higher level things that I want it to do. Now, I know there's artificial intelligence. We're not going to get into that today, okay? But in general, right? If I put something into a spreadsheet, it's got a set of data that's stored in it, and it will regurgitate it back to me, right? How many of you all feel the same about that list of words? And are there any words that you would add to study that might have come to mind? Damien?
I know this is more of a sentence rather than words, but when I think of studying, I think of like getting a grade, more than like retaining what I'm learning. It's more getting a grade rather than retaining it.
Okay, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. Any others? Megan?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. When I think of studying, I think of a schedule because they always tell us to make a timetable or something, but I find that when most of the learning I do is when I'm actually applying the information rather than sitting down and studying it. That makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And that's
Okay.
exactly what I was trying to say when I was talking about my experiences in the laboratory when I was a student. And you just said it better than I did. So thank you for that. Let's think about some words for learning, right? And some words that came to mind for me when I think about learning. I think about gaining wisdom, right? I think about training. Again, research appears there for me. I think about I've attained something, it's become permanent, it's become ingrained, kind of like what Megan was just saying. I actually think about understanding. I understand the concept, and I also think of transferability. Now, what do I mean by transferability? I've learned this set of concepts, I've learned this set of things, And now I can extrapolate that to something new. To me, that's learning. You know, when I go into my research laboratory and we're learning about how the little piece of the world works that I'm studying on, you know, when I'm able to take that information and extrapolate and apply it to something else, that's when I know that myself and my graduate students have truly learned something new and is worthy of putting in a publication or paper. So, you know, what I really want you to be able to do is spend less time over here on the study side and actually spend more time on the learning side. Because over here on the learning side is where you're going to gain that wisdom and that knowledge that you're going to be able to apply later on. And in our curriculum for chemistry, it builds. So the more that you have learned in general chemistry, the easier it's going to be for you in organic chemistry, the easier it's going to be for you in biochemistry as you move up through the ranks. The more you know that material now, the easier it's going to be for you when you get into medical school. So let's move on to the next slide. So here's an example that I always like to use. And let's say that I'm going to pick on you, Damien, just because you're on my screen, okay? But let's suppose that I ask Damien to teach this class next week, and I give him a topic. Is Damien going to study that topic, or is he going to learn that topic? What do you think, Damien? Are you going to study that topic, or are you going to learn the topic?
I will learn the topic.
You're going to want to learn the topic, right? Because you don't know what kind of questions people are going to ask you, right? You want to have a complete understanding of that topic so that you can answer any question, or at least most questions that come your way. Whereas if you put yourself in studying mode, you might know some facts, you might know some words, but you might not be able to answer a broad array of questions, right? So definitely you're going to want to learn that topic if you have to teach it. Well, if we're willing to learn something in order to teach it, why aren't we teaching to learn, right? And so here's the word descendo discimus, and which means, of course, it's Latin, which means by teaching we learn. I can tell you firsthand that the first time that I walked into a class to teach it is when I really knew whether or not I knew my material. And I'd already had a PhD, I'd spent time as a postdoc, and I had to go back and really relearn the basics of organic chemistry. I had become so narrowly focused from my time as a postdoctoral associate that I had to go back and remember what it was like to be a student and relearn the materials at a very simple level. And so by teaching, we learn. And I think it's very, very important that each student teach somebody in order to better learn the material. It is in your interest to form study groups. It is in your interest to spend time teaching your colleagues, your fellow students, not just because it helps them, but because it helps you. And so if you can teach somebody something, you have a better understanding of it than you do if you simply study it from a very simple point of view. So let's talk a little bit about how we learn. And I love this from the Learning to Learn paper that I assigned to you. So it's a little comic strip, right? And the first little panel, it says, I taught Stripe how to whistle. The other kid says, I don't hear him whistling. And then the kid comes back and says, I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. As a teacher, I can walk into a classroom of 200 students, and I've done this, and in 50 minutes give my lecture and walk out. And I could say, I taught my class. And none of you will have learned anything. So I have taken it upon myself, and I hope most faculty have taken it upon themselves to understand that we're here to facilitate your learning. And so as students, if you're not learning the material that you need to be learning, you need to be providing feedback to faculty. Ask them questions. That's how we know that the learning process is occurring. I can teach without learning happening, okay? And so that's an important thing for everybody to remember, faculty and students alike. And so keep that in mind. You also learned about Kolb's learning cycle. I'm not going to go through that in great detail. You all have that in your reading. But basically what I take from this is that experiences are what are foundational to all of our learning, right? And our experiences come from making mistakes. You know, you work an example problem and you make a mistake. Don't wad the paper up and get frustrated. Look at that paper, figure out where it is that you've made mistakes, and learn from those mistakes. Reach out to your colleagues, your fellow students. Reach out to your faculty member. Don't forget that failures are learning points, right? We want you to learn from your mistakes and your failures. I'm in the business of failure. We write proposals to the National Science Foundation. More than half of, well, 75, 80% of them end up getting rejected, right? But I keep doing it. You never get to where you don't have failures, believe me. You just need to learn from them. Repeat performance. Many students will work a problem and then say, oh, I understand that, and move on, right? But for those of you who have played in a band, played an instrument, been on a practice field for some sport, you never do a drill once. That's the whole point of drill. You do it over and over again to where you get muscle memory, to where you don't really have to think about it as much, right? The same thing with chemistry. You need to work multiple problems, multiple ways, multiple times to build up that muscle memory, if you will. Our interactions with others is very important, and also personal reflection. Personal reflection is very, very important in our learning process. You need to reflect on your understanding of the material, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. I also need you to think about where you stand on the pyramid, right? This is Bloom's taxonomy. There's also Fink's taxonomy, but we're just going to focus on this, right? Back in the old days, when I was, in school, it was, education was largely about remembering things and do you understand them? Kind of that lower level foundation. It's very important, but we really want you to get up here where you can be creative and create new knowledge. That's what your employers are going to want from you. That's what they're paying you for, right? And so we want you to be able to move up that ladder or that pyramid, if you will, as you continue in your studies. So think about where you find yourself on that pyramid with the subjects that you're studying. It doesn't have to necessarily be chemistry. It could be your foreign language. It could be your English class, but you need to be thinking about where you sit on that pyramid all of the time. And the way that you do that is through, in my opinion, through metacognition. And this comes from Dr. Sandra Yancey's book, Teaching Students How to Learn. She's the faculty member that I was telling you about that I got a lot of these ideas from, so I give her a lot of credit. And so metacognition is how do you think about your thinking, right? You got to think about your thinking to make some progress. So the first thing that you really need to do is you need to preview. You need to prepare yourself for active reading, right? You don't just sit down and open the book and start reading from page 1. You need to look at the book. You need to look at the material that you're going to be reviewing. You need to skim it kind of first. You need to prepare your mind for what's coming, okay? Just like you have to prepare an automobile body for paint. You have to prime it, right, or it won't stick. The same thing goes with learning. You've got to prime it. So prepare for active reading. Preview the material. Prepare for active reading. Know what's coming up on the next page or the next section. You need to be able to paraphrase what you've just learned or what you've just read. You need to read actively. I read a lot, but I only actively read probably a quarter of the time, right? And it's that quarter of the time that I'm really learning something. I put myself to sleep just about every night by reading something. And the next morning, I'm like, I have no idea what I read because I wasn't actively reading it, right? So you need to be in an active reading mode. You need to use your textbook correctly. You need to know where information is. You all should be going through your textbooks in a way that you can scaffold and know what's coming. You need to attend class and take notes by hand. Very, very important. especially in an online environment where you all are doing everything digitally and electronically right now. There is something different about this versus this in terms of how things get into our mind and stick. So take notes by hand. Do your homework without using examples. Struggle through it. You're supposed to struggle through your homework. That's where you're learning. Okay? You need to teach the material. And oddly enough, it doesn't really matter how you teach it. You can teach it to a potted plant. But if you can't teach it, you really don't know the material. Okay? So find a study group. Teach that material to somebody. Have them teach their material to you. That's how it works. Working in groups. Very important, though. When you decide to work in groups, get a group of people together that you all are going to build on each other's strengths. Far too often, students like to get together in groups of people who are in the same boat. I find people all the time. I'll say, "Well, are you studying in a study group?" "Oh yeah, I'm studying with Jill and Jan and Mark and Colby." And I'm like, "Well, they're all struggling with the same material. How are you teaching each other? You all need to get in groups where you have a variety of different strengths so that you all can build off of each other." Very important, number 10. It's number 10, but it shouldn't be last. You always need to create your own exam. When you're going through your chemistry reading, you need to be asking, is that going to be an exam question? How would I write an exam question over that topic? If you can do these 10 things about your learning and your studying, you're going to be in really good shape for any program at the university. And then I'm going to throw in an 11th one. Personal reflection of your performance. Every time you get a homework grade back, you need to reflect on that. Every time you get an exam back, you need to reflect on that. Real quick, Landon?
I was gonna ask if you could talk more about active reading and what, like, I've got a vague idea, but what specifically do you mean when you say active reading?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. I don't have time this morning, but what I will do this week is I will put together a quick screencast on it, and I'll post it in the next module for you all to look at. So you'll have that by Monday. Will that be okay?
For sure, yeah.
Okay. We have a visitor coming in a couple of minutes, so I need to get through some material. And so this is the study cycle that Sandra Yancey put together. Of course, I think it is the learning cycle. You need to preview your material before you come to class. You need to make sure that you attend class. Very, very important here. When I put this together, what tuition was, you all pay about 50 cents a minute to be in class. In tuition, or somebody's paying it, right? So in an hour class, you're paying 30 bucks. Think about that. Somebody's paying 30 bucks. So when you think, I need to skip class to go work my job, are you making 30 bucks an hour? Probably not, right? So why are you going to pay somebody $30 an hour to skip their class to go make whatever it is that you make at your job? So keep that in mind. Very, very important. Make sure you review the material after class each and every time. Learn the material. Always assess yourself by working problems. And then, of course, repeat and rinse, if you will, right? So we are at 8:45. I think we have a visitor with us. Anna Kate, are you with us now? Has she joined us? Let me check my email real quick, make sure she's getting into the system. I sent her the link.
My little sister's named Anna Kate. That's surprising.
Well, I haven't seen her jump on yet. There she is. Anna Kate, are you there? Oh, there she is. You're muted.
Oh.
There we go.
you hear me now?
Glad we got you.
Great.
So I'm going to turn the class over to you to where you can talk to them a little bit about, let me unshare my screen real quick. And just to let this class know, I'm going to finish up on the Feynman technique in the thing in that screencast that I'm going to do for additional stuff about the active reading. And hopefully at some point in the near future, you all will be able to study abroad again. But Anna Kate is going to come and talk to you about those types of opportunities here at the university. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Anna Kate.
Great. Thank you. Well, good morning, guys. I appreciate y'all letting me come and speak and listening to me for a little bit. As Dr. Masterson just mentioned, I'm Anna Kate Agents, and I work in the Office of Study Abroad here at Southern Miss. I manage our short-term programs, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about all of them. As you can imagine, things in our office are kind of off right now. We're not doing too many programs or any programs this semester or really this spring, but we're looking forward to this summer. Is this a mostly freshman class or upperclassmen or what?
Mostly freshmen.
Mostly freshmen. Okay, great. Well, then I'm just going to really give y'all a good overview so you know what your options are and go ahead and start planning. We'd like students to really start thinking about it early so they can be sure to fit it into their schedule, prepare for it financially, make sure their classes work and all that kind of stuff. Do you mind if I share a PowerPoint, Dr. Masterson?
That is perfectly fine.
Give y'all something else to look at. Let's see. Get it up real fast. Whoops. Let's see. Hopefully it's coming.
There it is. Yep, we can see it just fine, or at least I can.
Okay, great. Hopefully. So, first off, have most of y'all heard about study abroad? I know you're muted. Maybe a thumbs up, a wave, something, a nod, perfect. So the biggest question is, what is study abroad? And it is earning Southern Miss academic credit while traveling the world. So you will be earning USM credit. So just like you would take Chemistry 108 here, you would get Chemistry 108 CA, which stands for Credit Abroad. So it's not a full substitution. It is just aren't taking your USM classes just like you would here on campus. But instead of being in Hattiesburg, you will be in Spain or France or wherever your program is. And then the second question we always get is, well, why should I do it? What's the importance of it? There are a ton of benefits to study abroad. I know there's a lot of words up there. But first, it's a big career builder. As I just mentioned, you're earning credit that you already need to go toward your degree. So it can help fulfill those graduation requirements. It's a resume enhancer. So employers really like to see that by studying abroad, you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, to try something new. You should hear all the time how globalized our world has become, how international businesses are, and how, just like we're teaming here, you're teaming or zooming all over the world. And so they like to see that you have that global experience. And then you can build international networks. So while you're on these programs, you're going to meet with people in those countries. You're meeting with businesses or with chemists there, if that's what you're studying, or that stuff. So you're really building that international network. So when the time comes for you to look for a job, you've already made those connections that could possibly turn into a career. It makes you a global citizen. So you have, like I mentioned, that experience, working with people who are different than you. What does that look like? How does that make you gain a better perspective? And then if you are studying a foreign language, this is the way to do it. There's no better way, to learn to speak French than to fully immerse yourself in it, because I promise you, if it comes between, ordering dinner and not being able to eat, you're going to learn how to say it and really put yourself out there and practice that speaking. And then lastly, it's just fun. You'll see some pictures and videos in a minute of our students abroad. it's just a good time. You are getting to travel. You are getting to see new things and have all these neat experiences that you can't have here in Hattiesburg or even here in the States. Students make lifelong friends when you're put in those tough situations. You know, you have this different kind of bond, and then you're just getting to try new things. And then the third question we always get is, well, that sounds really expensive. Like, yeah, I want to go, but how am I going to afford it? The great news is that on all of our programs, your financial aid applies. So monies that you are already receiving can go toward your study abroad program. So for example, if you're receiving institutional like academic excellence during the fall semester, that will go toward your tuition for a fall semester program. If you get Pell Grant in the summer, that Pell Grant can go toward your summer program. The tuition you pay on all these programs is just the cost of USM tuition. Like I said, it's USM credit, so those costs are the same. And then if you need a little additional help, there are tons of university and national scholarships you can apply for through the GO system. I'm sure you've all recently filled that out at USM, and there's a question in there that says, are you interested in studying abroad? If you check yes, then it will show you all the different applicable scholarships in that system for you to be able to study abroad. And then there are Stafford loans, Parent Plus loans, other alternative loans. But the main thing is we just don't want that to be a deterrent. We hear students say all the time, like, oh, well, like, I just know I can't afford that, so I'm not even going to look into it. I'm not even going to try. Study abroad is for students. It's for y'all to go. We know students aren't super wealthy and that we want to make it available however we can. So certainly always reach out to us and talk to us about that because we can find a way for you to go. So what are your options for study abroad at Southern Miss? We have 4 different types of programs I'm going to go through real quick. The first is exchange. And so this is going to be really the only type of program we're offering this spring. So if you are already interested and you're like, oh, I want to go this spring, it is for upperclassmen. It's not just for freshmen. So sorry, freshmen. These really aren't for you, but it is where you exchange with one of our partner universities around the world for a semester or academic year. So just like you're a student here at USM, you will go to, let's say, our partner Kiel in the UK and see what it's like to be a college student there. You can live in the dorms. You'll take a full semester worth of classes. The great thing about exchange is that just like you can choose from hundreds of different classes here at USM, you can do that there as well. So you can take any class that they're offering. So that really opens up your options and the kind of credit you can receive and make sure it fits. If you're like, oh, I need this particular political science credit, you can try to see what they have and match that up there.
I think we got a couple of questions real quick.
Sure.
Damien?
Is there a
Damien,
question?
do you have a question? I guess not. Megan, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I have a question. So I'm already an international student. So technically for me, this is studying abroad. But if I was supposed to enroll in this type of program, I know that there aren't a lot of scholarships here available for me because I'm international. Like the first rule that you always see is must be American. So are there special, where'd it go? Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
we can.
Okay. Are there special scholarships in the study abroad program that would apply to everyone, or is it just for American students?
Yes, that is a good question. I know there are some that can apply to international students. We usually do have at least 1 or 2 a year who do our programs, and they have received scholarships. I cannot think of any off the top of my head, but yes, there are, and that's something. If you want to make an appointment with me sometime, we can certainly sit down and look at and apply through. Because unfortunately, you are right. Like a lot of national scholarships are just for American citizens. But we can definitely find some aid and help for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great question.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to suggest is that we hold our questions, and then I can provide the contact information to the study abroad office if you have anything.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just breeze through this last part real fast. And then, like you said, we can always make an appointment. Yeah, so our exchange programs, those are going to be semester or academic year. It's going to be a more independent experience. So if you are feeling brave and want to go experiences on your own, that's going to be the program for you. We have partners all over the world, so really wherever you want to go, depending on your language fluency as well. But it's up to 18 credits, and it's USM tuition. So I do want to mention that real fast, that as I mentioned, your financial aid applies. Doing one of these semester programs is going to be really your best deal financially, because if your tuition is covered for the spring semester here at USM, it will be covered on this program. So then you're just paying for your dorm and spending money or apartment, whatever, just like you would here. Excuse me. So that's very comparable. And there's just a few examples of where they are. All this is on our website too. Let's see if I can get it to switch. Our faculty-led programs are going to be those short-term study abroad programs. These are between 2 weeks and a semester long, and so depending on the length, you can earn between 3 and 16 credits. These are open to all majors and all levels. And these are going to be the more specific ones. So say you want to say, like, I want to go learn Spanish in Spain. You're going to earn 6 credit hours in Spanish in Spain with a group of USM students. And then here's just an example of different programs and subject areas we offer in. And then we also have internships abroad. These are new, so I want to plug these real fast too. This is going to be 8 weeks in the summer in Dublin, Ireland. And you are placed according to whatever you need. So if you are a business student who needs an internship, you will be matched and placed in a business internship. If you're psychology, you can be placed in that field. So it's really customizable to whatever you need. So not only does this fulfill the internship credit you can need to graduate, but you also get that international experience on top of it. And then if you are an education major, we also have student teaching abroad. So if you need to get your hours, you can do a 6-week placement all over the world, wherever you'd like to go there too. So all that to say, we have a little bit for everybody. This upcoming year is going to be a little different in what we're offering. We are looking forward to having all of our summer programs this upcoming summer, but we don't exactly know which ones yet. As y'all know, things can change so quickly. We don't quite know what our coronavirus is doing. So the next steps, if you are interested in this at all or even have more questions, we'd love for you to go to our website and click the Get Started tab. You can book an appointment to meet with me, ask whatever questions, go through. There's an advising application you can start. That way I can just get some information on you. We don't have any program applications open yet. Well, like I said, we're still kind of waiting to see what our summer is going to look like. But it's never too early. Even if you're like, okay, I think I want to do an exchange program as a junior. That's in 2 years. That's fine. Let's go ahead and start talking, start thinking about where you want to go so you can plan that through. And follow us on social media, especially this semester. Since y'all are all at home and everything's virtual, we will be posting a lot of stuff on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all at Study Abroad USM. And our website is studyabroad.usm.edu. And that's it for me.
Well, thank you so much, Anna Kate, for coming and talking with the students. And just in the last minute that we have, what I will say is I encourage each and every one of you, even though you're freshmen, to get involved early with trying to put together your study abroad, if that's what you want to do, because it may take you a couple of semesters to get the opportunity you want. It may take you a couple of semesters to raise the funds that you need. And so the earlier you start, the more likely it is that you will be able to get what you want out of it. Real quick, Megan, you have your hand up. Landon?
So would we email you
Yes.
and just ask for an appointment or something?
Sure, you can go, if you go to our website, you can just book an appointment, but if not, there's my email address. It's just annakate.bajents@usm.edu. And I can set up an appointment with you for sure.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Everything's virtual this semester, so we'll be teaming or Zooming, but we're still meeting.
All right. Well, we are at the end of the hour, and I want to thank Anna Kate for coming and talking with us. It was very informative. We appreciate it. And I encourage everybody to reach out to her and start thinking about study abroad. Remember that we will have our next week's lecture materials will be up by Monday next week. So keep an eye out for our September 2nd course, where we will have career services will be coming to talk with us about what they can offer you all as well. So thank you all. You all have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you all later.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Masterson.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.